Hey friends, it's me, Erin, your friendly neighborhood energy alchemist. Have you ever heard of spiritual bypassing? Do you have any idea what that even is? Well, if you hang out in a video coming up in just a few minutes, the video is about an hour long, I will say, but this is an instant replay of a class I give on TikTok Live every Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. called Professor Brown Breaks It Down. The subject for this week was spiritual bypassing. We're going to talk all about it, so stay tuned and check it out.
Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited that you're here. We're going to talk about spiritual bypassing. All right, so spiritual bypassing. Now, just to remind everybody, I am reading a lesson that I created. St. Louis, you're so close. You're so close. I mean, close relative to California, right? You're from Germany. Wow. Welcome in. It's so wonderful to see you. Welcome in. Welcome in. During the lesson, I am going to be looking down because I'm reading what I wrote. I do write these lessons. I am going to put this particular video up on YouTube later today. If you don't follow my YouTube channel, you can find it in here in my link tree. A lot of YouTube is just the same lessons I do on TikTok, but if you want to find them there, you certainly can. I do have a moderator in the room, Be Mine Melton Moore. Be Mine, please put yourself up on the board there so everyone can see you. During today's class, if you have a question, yeah, Rhode Island, but it's definitely not like living on an island. I got you. School is in session. Yes, exactly. School is in session. This is Be Mine, you guys. She is my moderator in the room. I have two other moderators. I don't think they're here, but if you have a question, please tag her. She will keep track of the questions, but also hold your questions till the end when I can actually see them and address them. I want to make sure that everybody's questions gets answered. The only thing I ask of you is while you're in the room, if you could just tap the screen while you're in here, that gets our likes up and shares this out. If there's anyone you feel could benefit from this material, please feel free to share it. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We're going to talk about spiritual bypassing. Woo! All right. So today's lesson is all about spiritual bypassing. So what do you think of when you hear the word spirituality? For just a moment, I want you to hold in your mind the things that come to mind immediately about spirituality. Are you picturing, perhaps you are picturing stunning temples, celestial instruments, like cards, right? Glistening statues of Buddha, lush gardens and forests, the serene faces of enlightened teachers, angels, majestic mountains, breathtaking sunsets, or countless other awe-inspiring images. These are all things that really bring to mind the idea of spirituality. Sorry, I keep getting distracted. I'm on the second floor. I'm just letting you know there's something that keeps coming by my window, and every time I look, it's not there, so it's out of the corner of my eye. So that tells me it's one of my guides or something in that space making a shadow. So if I keep looking over there, I'm sorry. There's literally nothing there except my guides, and they're just getting on my nerves. So, hi Sonia, I'm not doing readings today. All right. Typically, spiritual enlightenment is linked with elevated and mystical states of existence that bring feelings of bliss, happiness, inner harmony, and satisfaction. Although spirituality can be very appealing, it's also important to acknowledge its challenging and difficult aspects. I think the biggest problem that I see in my practice with other people is they have this awakening, right? And then they want to know everything immediately. And they want their experience to be like the experience of other people who have gone through this sort of thing. What's important to realize is your experience is 100% unique to you. It's not going to be like anybody else's. So that's part of the tricky part, right? Like you want your experience to be like theirs. Like, oh, I want to be able to see that and hear that and feel that. But if that's not what you came here to do, you're not going to have that same experience. Doesn't mean you won't experience it in some degree or in a different way, but it's never going to be exactly the same as someone else's experience. So the way you can think of that is the idea is that we're all one, right? If we all had the same exact experience with our gifts or ourselves, then there would only need to be one of us, literally just one. And so we're all different. The idea being when we come together, we make one, right? So that's kind of the lowdown on spirituality. Spiritual bypassing is a concept that highlights the tendency to use spiritual beliefs, practices, or ideologies as a means to avoid facing and dealing with unresolved emotional, psychological, or even practical issues in your life. Toxic positivity is another thing that goes along with this, right? It's akin to attempting to skip steps in personal growth and jump directly to the more flashy or advanced aspects of spirituality, such as focusing solely on opening the third eye or crown chakra. One of the biggest mistakes that people make when they first go through their awakening is they want to focus all of their attention on their third eye, because that's what we associate with spirituality, spiritual awakening, magic, whatever. That's what we associate. The problem is you have a whole system of circulation, of energy circulation. And if you work just on this, without first working on this energy literally has nowhere to go. It's supposed to circulate in your system. And if you have big blockages here that are preventing the energy from moving, it causes all kinds of problems. It can cause spiritual psychosis, which is the inability to tell the difference between your physical reality and spiritual aspects of your life. And it can lead to lots of mental health disorders. So I personally always recommend to every single person going through awakening, start at the root. The root is the root of everything. That's where you need to start. That's where you start pulling out some of the trauma triggers you have and some of the experiences that you've had. Bring them out to the light so they get some exposure. And just like many things that are unknown or things that don't carry a name, so to speak, can be scary. When you give your pain a name, I feel this pain inside of me. I understand that it hurts, instead of pushing it down and saying, no, I'm fine. You have to acknowledge it. When you acknowledge it, you take the power away from it, because suddenly you have control over it instead of it having control over you, because it's a no-name thing sort of floating in your system. So that kind of where people tend to go when they first go through their awakening. You don't want to do that. You don't want to start up here. You want to start with the root, which is the base of all your understanding of the world around you, and work your way up slowly through that. Okay? All right. This approach, the skipping everything and just going straight to the third eye, right? This approach can be counterproductive and potentially harmful. The term spiritual bypassing was initially coined by psychologist John Wellwood in 1984. Mainstream psychologist, okay? He's the one who coined this term. As he explained in an interview, quote, spiritual bypassing is a term I coined to describe a process I saw happening in the Buddhist community I was in and also in myself. Although most of us were sincerely trying to work on ourselves, I noticed a widespread tendency to use spiritual ideas and practices to sidestep or avoid facing unresolved emotional issues, psychological wounds, and unfinished developmental tasks. Yeah, April, everybody does it. Lots of us do it because it's painful. It's painful to work on these things, and your first reaction to pain is to pull back. So that's why many people don't do this. It's okay. All you gotta do is realize you're doing it. Thank you for my squishy, Lele. All you have to do is acknowledge that you're doing it, and it kind of pulls you back from that, okay? When we engage in spiritual bypassing and try to leapfrog over the necessary inner work, we often neglect the fundamental aspects of our emotional and psychological well-being. It's like trying to build a giant structure without a strong foundation. Your root is your foundation, FYI. Just as blood circulates through our bodies, energy circulates through our chakra system, and each chakra is interconnected. Yes, Jeanette, work your way up, meaning deal with all your emotional pain first. Well, emotional pain can be in any chakra. So working with your root can look like many different things. It can look like starting to work on your triggers by journaling about the triggers that you have and then really digging down to see where that came from. Most often, if you're working in the root, it comes from childhood or from parents. which doesn't mean there's anything wrong with your parents. It doesn't mean they were bad parents. It just means that this is what they were taught and they handed that to you. And you have the choice. You can continue to work with what they gave you, or you can evolve into what works for you. Most people tend to just hang on to what was given to them because that's what was given to them, not realizing that you can evolve into what works best for you. Just because it worked for your parents doesn't mean it will work for you. Just because it's always been doesn't mean it should always be, right? So for me, working with my clients, working in the root, it's a lot about identifying the big triggers that you have, digging down to see where those triggers are coming from, putting a voice to those things, to the emotion that caused the trigger, and then releasing it from your system. It also involves meditation, grounding, energy work, doing things for your own self-care. All of that is all part of it. And a lot of that translates into each of the chakras, but with the root specifically, a lot of triggers are kind of held there because that is the root of what you believe about yourself and the world around you. It's essentially the home of your worldview. So if your worldview is skewed to have you always having bad things happen to you, then that's going to set you up for a lot of triggers. But you can choose how you want to look at the world and how you want to look at how things happen to you. You can choose, do they happen to you or for you? That's the first step that a lot of people take. Are you a victim or not? I mean, if you're choosing to say that everything is happening to you, that puts you in victim mode. You've put yourself in victim mode. Or you can choose to say everything is happening for my greatest good, even if I don't understand it right now. I understand it is happening for my greatest good and it will get me there eventually. So it's a lot about mindset. It's a lot about digging down. Journaling, I talk about journaling on here constantly because it has simply been the greatest tool other than meditation for myself. Not just because I'm talking to myself without fear of judgment from anyone else, so I can be completely honest in what I say, but also in reflecting on how far I've actually come on those days when I have really shit days, to go back into your journal and go back 6 months and see how far you've come since then can be really, really encouraging. And it's not anything that anyone outside of you is telling. It's you telling yourself how far you've come. Where was I? Okay. Sometimes people use spirituality as a way to protect themselves from the negative aspects of life. However, relying solely on spirituality can hinder our personal growth and prevent us from developing qualities like courage, authenticity, and compassion. While spirituality may provide a temporary refuge, it can also create a false sense of security and limit our perceptions of reality. Remember, just because you are going through this spiritual awakening and learning all this stuff, you have to still be here in this physical life. You cannot live your life in these chakras. You have to integrate. Part of the purpose of you being here is to have experiences, lifetime experiences. Go through these things and allow yourself to grow from them. Hello, life, love, welcome in. Allow yourself to grow from these experiences. That's all part of it, okay? Doing the work required for growth means, ready? Addressing and resolving the issues and traumas that may be stored in those lower chakras. A lot of trauma gets stored in the root, gets stored in the sacral, gets stored in the solar plexus. Trauma about past inner child stuff that you've gone through. If you've been a victim of abuse in some way, that also gets stored in there. It changes how you see yourself, which is part of your solar plexus. These are all interconnected. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's not just about one thing. You can't just work here and expect it to translate. You're working on every aspect of yourself, okay? These lower chakras are associated with our basic needs, emotions, relationships, and identity, right? That's going right up the scale. Going right up the scale. Needs in the root, emotions also in the root, relationships in the sacral, identity in the solar plexus, okay? Ignoring them in favor of more esoteric chakras, these upper chakras, can result in a spiritual facade, you like that word? Spiritual facade that lacks authenticity and depth. We've all met somebody like that. Every one of us has met somebody like that, where in the outside world, they're all love, light, and joy. They say, I love everybody and I'm welcoming everybody, but in their private life, they're doing all kinds of stuff to contradict what they're saying in their real, like, outward facing life. Everybody knows somebody like that. Everybody. I know a lot of people like that, quite frankly, and I don't want to be like that. I want to be genuine. I want what you see here to be what you see when we meet in person, to be what you see when we have a session. I'm 100% who I am all the time, and Heather is 100% who she is all the time. She and I are working very diligently to 100% be authentic, and for a lot of people, that's really difficult to do. And there's a million reasons why. Fear of judgment's a huge one, right? Especially if you don't have a lot of people in your community who are kind of open to this woo-woo stuff, right? It can be very difficult to talk about what you're feeling, what you're experiencing and all that sort of stuff with someone else because fear of judgment. But if you're not expressing this part of yourself and you truly are trying to grow and be spiritual, you're leaving out a whole part of yourself. That's not truth. That's half truth. I'm just saying. Do you really care if they're judging you? How is it going to impact your life? Let's just think about it that way. If you talk to someone and you have a conversation and you tell them you like to read cards or get, hey, thank you, Brandy. I saw you. Just a minute, Brandy. I just want to pause and tell you guys that I saw Brandy this morning on her live, on Heather's live working out. And Brandy, girl, you look amazeballs. Truly amazing. I can see the change in you in the 6 weeks you've been doing this, or the 7 weeks you've been doing this. I mean, it's amazing. I'm just saying. Okay. Doing the work required for growth means addressing the resolved issues and doing the work required for growth means addressing and resolving the issues and traumas that may be stored in the lower chakra. I already said that. Ignoring them in favor of more esoteric chakras can result in a spiritual facade, right? It's akin to meditating emotional pain away without acknowledging it or processing it. I'm just going to pretend it's not there. I'm just going to pretend it's not there. I'm just going to pretend it's not there. And then suddenly you feel better for a minute. Okay, I meditated it away. It's gone. Magic. Someone healed me. That's not how it works. That's not how it works, friend. You have to acknowledge it. You have to pull it out into the light and you have to look at it. I've talked about this before. The way energy works in the body through the chakra systems, think about an atom. You know what an atom nucleus looks like, and you've got the electrons going around? Energy gets stored in those electron shells that are around each atom. They're in the cells that you have. When you feel an experience you don't like, which feeling is the action of your life, it's the verb of your life. When you feel something you don't like, instead of allowing it into your body, vibrating around, bouncing around, creating joy and letting it out, it comes in, it bounces around, it creates pain, and you go, ooh, I don't like it, so you push it down. It contracts and condenses and gets into like a hard little nugget of energy that gets stored in the electron shells of your atoms in the cells, right? And it typically gets stored in the cells around the chakra related to the feeling. So let's just say grief tends to get stored a lot around the heart chakra. Everybody does this. Even people who are actively working on themselves, they still do this. Don't feel bad if you do it. It's okay. Everybody does it. It's okay. The problem becomes when you keep adding on top of it. Those atoms get denser and heavier and they start to pull down. The cell gets heavier and heavier. The space around that organ in the body starts to get heavy, and you start to get physical manifestation of this emotional illness that you're holding on to. So that's how energy works in the body. So the true spiritual growth requires an honest examination of our inner landscape and a willingness to address our past wounds, fears, and insecurities. You have to be willing to look at it. No one can take this from you. You have to re-feel the emotion to reactivate it into your body so you can then let it out of your system. Okay? Doing the necessary inner work creates a strong and balanced foundation for our spiritual journeys. This foundation allows energy to flow harmoniously through our chakra system, much like a healthy circulatory system ensures the proper distribution of blood throughout the body, right? So just as a review, everyone receives energy through your crown. That's where it comes from, just how it is. Comes in through your crown. It is supposed to circulate through each of your chakras and distribute along the path of the chakra that needs the energy so that by the time it gets to the root, everything can distribute out, right? then whatever is left or whatever gets pushed to the surface by this new energy coming in comes out into the system, and it's supposed to be able to circulate out through your feet back into Mother Earth to be recycled. We put shoes on the bottom of our feet, we create a closed circuit, and now all the energy gets stuck in here. That's why grounding feels so good. That's why meditation is so important, because meditation is the act of like mechanically grounding yourself, pulling yourself present, being in the moment. Those are all parts of it. Hey, Nicole! Welcome in. Hey, Camp Crazy. I just saw you, friend. Hey. All right. This foundation allows energy to flow harmoniously through our chakra system, much like a healthy circulatory system ensures the proper distribution of blood throughout the body, blah, blah, blah. Only when our lower chakras are well balanced can we progress. I have to burp, hold on. I lost it. Okay. I lost my place too. Jeez. Only when our lower chakras are well balanced can we progress to the higher chakras with authenticity and stability. You can always go up there, but it's not going to stick, and it's going to keep having to be addressed because you haven't completed opening up the whole system. Spiritual growth should not be rushed or forced. I cannot stress that enough. What are you in a hurry for? You're an eternal being. Where are you going? Why are you in such a rush? Slow down. Enjoy it. It's about enjoying the ride. It's not about where you're going. It's about enjoying everything along the way. So allow yourself to feel this. Allow yourself to be part of this, okay? It is a gradual, holistic process that involves tending to all aspects of your being, okay? In this way, we can achieve a more profound and sustainable transformation that encompasses the lower and higher aspects of our consciousness, promoting a well-rounded and authentic spiritual journey. Okay. Hi, Victoria. No, I'm not doing readings today. We are in Professor Brown's classroom today talking about spiritual bypassing. I will be doing readings Wednesday at 3, but if you would like to schedule a private reading, you can do that by going here to my link tree. All right, so I've got a couple different types of spiritual bypassing. How many do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 types of spiritual bypassing. Thank you, Victoria. We got 6 types of spiritual bypassing. Number 1, toxic positivity. This is a big one. This is one that I see more often than any other one, okay? Toxic positivity. In life, we've all encountered those individuals who exude laughter and joy, but their optimism seems forced or fake. These people often encourage others to focus on the positives, see the glass half full, or not let a frown get you down. However, this positive mindset can be a way to avoid acknowledging the harsher realities of life. This tendency to bypass negativity may stem from a fear of anger or an inability to cope with negative emotions in general. It also happens when someone starts telling you how they feel and the person says to them, well, it could be worse. Well, no shit, it could be worse. It could always be worse. That completely invalidates the feelings of the person that you're talking to, just FYI, and that is a form of toxic positivity. It's not about covering things up with fun sayings like the glass is half full. It's about using those sayings, the glass is half full, while actively working on yourself to help you actually feel that way. And the only way you can actually feel that way is to work on the shit that you're holding on to. I mean, I'm sorry for the potty mouth. I'm just saying. You know, yeah, I always retort that's bad enough for me. Yeah, but the problem is that people are so lost in here that they don't even realize what they're saying. So that's part of it, right? Number 2, the egoic bypass. This is another very, tell them I said hi and I miss them too. Sorry guys, I got distracted because my squirrel, my spicy squirrel told me that the littles that I love so much miss me. I love you, Brennan. I love you, Aiden, A-Train, and B-Money. I love you. Okay, anyway. Sorry. Just do me a favor, if you're in the room, please tap the screen as much as possible. This gets this out to as many people, and we can help more people. We have our 2 granddaughters in our life for the first time as of yesterday. Congratulations, Logan's Naya. I'm so happy for you. I'm so excited that they get to be part of your life and that you get to be part of theirs. How wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, the egoic bypass. Some individuals adopt the egoic bypass in their spiritual journey to feel superior or more enlightened than others, right? This goes along with the idea that there's levels of spiritual enlightenment. It's not, there's no one's ahead or behind anybody else. It's just where you are in your own journey. And where you're going is not always going to be the same as where someone else is going. You could be going to Cleveland and they can be going to San Diego. And if you're comparing your journey with theirs, you're never going to get anywhere because you're going to always think they're ahead of you. You know what I'm saying? It's not about comparison. I just want to say that, not about comparison. All right? These people may have claimed to reach a certain milestone as a way to hide their perceived insecurities and shortcomings. This tactic is often used by spiritual leaders, self-proclaimed masters, and yogis who have awakened their kundalini to gain a following and make money. It's important to be aware of this behavior and not be swayed by false claims of spiritual superiority. That's just how it is. You're going to see spiritual teachers who claim to be enlightened, who claim to have all the knowledge. I can think of one offhand that says it a lot, but I'm not going to say their name because she's very famous and I don't want to get in trouble. But while outwardly she says these things, inwardly she runs her practice like a cult and all kinds of stuff. So just be aware that not everyone is who they say they are. Do your due diligence. Make sure you feel in resonance with that person. If you are talking to someone and you feel like you're not matching up with them, then why force it? Don't force it. Just let it go. You don't have to be part of their group or whatever. You can let them go. So I'm just saying. I'm not going to say who it is, Nicole. She's just very famous, and I've seen her. I've interacted with her multiple times, and the interactions I get from her are not the interactions that she says she has with other people. So I'm just putting it out there. And I also do not, I also do not want to judge anybody. I don't want to judge. It's just, I can just say from my experience, it is not the same as it is with other people. Okay. Number 3, the victim bypass. Sometimes people use other people's actions as an excuse to avoid taking responsibility for their own happiness and creating a fulfilling life. This goes along with the idea of, do things happen to you or do things happen for you? Okay? This is known as the victim bypass. Allowing oneself to fall into victim mode while healing from emotional trauma can be a form of spiritual bypassing because it involves avoiding the responsibility of addressing one's own actions and emotions. No matter what happened in your life, you have some responsibility in it. I'm not saying you asked for it to happen. I'm not saying any of that stuff, but you have some responsibility in it, and avoiding taking any responsibility for anything that happens in your life is just bypassing everything, okay? It's important to recognize that while healing, acknowledging the pain and suffering we've endured is a crucial part of the process. You have to talk about it. You really do, okay? However, staying indefinitely in a victim mindset can become a barrier to personal growth and spiritual development. By perpetually casting oneself as a victim, there's a risk of evading the necessary inner work and accountability for our own choices and reactions. True healing and spiritual growth involve finding the balance between acknowledging the pain we've experienced and actually taking steps toward empowerment and self-responsibility, ultimately leading to a more profound transformation and discovery. Hello. Yes. So here's an example I can give you. This isn't necessarily spiritual in nature, but this is something that happens quite a bit. Let's just say someone comes to me and says, man, I just don't feel aligned with my job. I feel like I'm just wasting my time there, and I don't want to be there anymore, but I can't get out from underneath it. I just can't. So my first suggestion was something this is a real conversation I had with somebody. And my first suggestion to the person was something similar to, well, how about when you're on downtime and you're just scrolling on your phone, how about instead of scrolling on Facebook or TikTok or whatever, you go to one of the job websites like Glassdoor or whatever, and just start gently looking through the jobs that are out there. See what sparks your interest. See if anything catches your eye. See if anything blah, blah. Oh no, I don't know what I want to do. I can't do that. I'm just not sure. Okay, fine. And then the next thing I don't have time to look for another job. I said, okay, great. So when you're in the bathroom on your phone, looking at TikTok for 20 minutes, How about you do it then? How about you use that time to look for another job? And you don't have to look for anything. You don't have to look with the agenda of I'm going to apply for all these jobs. Just look to see what's out there. No, I don't have time. I don't have time. You're arguing in favor of your own limitations, and I'm not going to argue with you. If you want to give power to your perceived limitations, I'm not going to take them from you. So this happens a lot with people. They come up with an excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse of why they don't want to deal with whatever they're dealing with. The biggest reason tends to be they're blaming someone else and they're waiting for closure. Closure's not real. It's just not. This is something I learned in my psychology studies. Closure is just not a real thing. I want you to think of it this way. You're waiting for someone to give you a reason for the way that they treated you. That's what closure is. You're waiting for a reason for what happened. Now, let me ask you this. Is there any reason at all whatsoever that anyone can give you about what happened that changed what happened? No. And 99% of the time, no matter what they say, even if they say it's all my fault, I did it purposely, I was trying to hurt you, that doesn't make you feel better. And a lot of times it makes you feel worse. So what are you waiting for? In waiting for closure, you're holding on to the pain in the hopes that someone else is going to take it away from you. You're holding it like this. You can't do that. Forgiveness is for you, it's not for them. They don't have to be sorry for you to forgive them, and you also don't have to keep that person in your life actively if you feel like in a bad situation with them. You have to find ways around it. You have to find ways to put yourself first, okay? Just saying. What number are we on? 1, 2, 3. Number 4, the psychonaut bypass. This is a good one. Awareness is key, Anthony, 100%. And you know what? I think a lot of us do this, so don't feel bad. I think a lot of us do it, okay? The psychonaut bypass. This was a new one for me. So I did a lot of research for this, and this particular one came from lonerwolf.com. I hadn't actually thought about this, so I'm really grateful to them for thinking of that. The psychonaut bypass. Some people who seek spirituality take psychedelic drugs like LSD, DMT, psilocybin, mescaline, and other substances that can expand their consciousness and explore the mind, soul, and reality. While these substances are fascinating for exploring reality, they can also be used to escape from daily life and avoid personal development and spiritual growth, much like any other drug, okay? When using these tools to help expand your awareness of the world around you, it is imperative for you to remember that you need to actually do the work yourself to release the densities you hold on to. There is no amount of substance and no other person who can do it for you. It is a cooperative effort all the way around, right? So psilocybin, DMT, weed, all these breathing techniques, whatever it is, all of these are tools designed to help you look more deeply into yourself. They are not there to cure you or to heal you in any way, but they are there to serve, to bring to the surface and to the light those issues that need addressing. So if you take mushrooms and you have this amazing experience and all this stuff comes to the surface, and instead of working on that stuff, you just say, oh, I did mushrooms, I'm good, I'm healed. That's not the same thing, right? That is not the same thing. Just keep that in mind. All right, next we have what's called the saint bypass. Excuse me. You know this happens, okay? The saint bypass. When we were young, many of us were taught that a spiritual person is always kind, compassionate, and saintly, right? Unfortunately, this belief can cause a lot of suffering in our adult lives. The saint bypass is an extreme way of thinking that assumes spiritual people can't have negative qualities. It's a form of avoidance where people overcompensate for their dark side by pretending to be sweet and angelic, right? This can lead to the martyr complex, which is a major symptom of this type of spiritual bypassing. It is so important to remember that everyone has bad days, okay? And days where they feel as though they are not making any progress in their world or on their journey. I do, Heather does, we all do, okay? It isn't about pretending those days don't exist, but it is about learning to feel the emotions those days bring to the surface, acknowledge those feelings, and then allow them to leave your system. Okay? And the last one I have is the prayer bypass. Using prayer as a means of spiritual bypassing while seeking solace in divine intervention can sometimes inadvertently mask our responsibility for our own healing journey. While prayer is a powerful and comforting practice, it's important to remember that it should not be a substitute for taking inspired action in our lives. Okay? The saying that comes to mind is God helps those who help themselves. Right? Remember that? Remember that phrase? By aligning our prayers with mindful and purpose actions, we can co-create the path to healing and personal growth, working in partnership with the divine forces that guide us. In this way, prayer becomes a source of strength and guidance, empowering us to navigate life complexities with mindfulness, resilience, and a deep sense of purpose. I am in no way at all saying I don't believe in prayer or I don't pray. I mean, I'm not praying to the big white guy in the sky. Like, that's not what God looks like to me. But prayer can be very important because it helps focus your intentions. It helps bring things to the surface. It helps put energy in the right direction. But it is not a way to say, God, please find my car keys, and then sit on the couch and wait for them to magically appear in your hand. That's not how it works. Let's just say you lost your car keys. When you pray and you say, God, I really need to find my car keys. I really have to go to work. And then you center yourself and you look with new eyes. A lot of times the little signs, the little things that lead you along the path will lead you to the keys. It's not about God dropping them in your lap and saying, here are your keys. It's about you taking responsibility. Okay, I lost my keys. I will find my keys. I'm asking for clarity and for guidance. You know what I'm saying? TLC Creations. I just want you to know this particular one will be on my YouTube probably tomorrow, sometime later tonight or tomorrow. Hello, Odonata. Welcome from Denver. All right. So let's talk about now some ways to stop spiritual bypassing. So let's say that I've read off these 6 ways that people do of spiritual bypassing. You've probably done one, if not all of them. You're probably actively doing one, if not all of them, just like me, just like Heather, just like everybody else. Hey, Nana, I love seeing you in here, my friend. So now that you've recognized that you're doing it, what can you do? How can you stop spiritually bypassing, right? Let's Nicole, I seriously love that you love listening to my live. Okay. How do you stop spiritual bypassing? What a great question. All right. Self-awareness and mindfulness. Number 1. The first step in overcoming spiritual bypassing is developing self-awareness and mindfulness. This involves being honest with yourself about your emotional state. Don't say you're fine if you're not fine. Why do you do that? Stop it. Being honest with yourself about your emotional state, your reactions, and your tendencies to avoid difficult emotions and challenges. Practicing daily mindfulness through meditation or simply by just pausing throughout the day to check in with your feelings and thoughts. Journaling can be a valuable tool to record your emotions and any instances of spiritual bypassing you may experience. Moving forward, make a commitment to confront and process challenging emotions rather than suppressing them. Recognize that healing involves facing these emotions head on and allowing them to be felt and understood. I know that there are so many times that those emotions are hard to feel. If it's too hard for you to deal with in the moment, put it away for later. Not with the intention of not dealing with it, but with the intention of dealing with it when you are in a more stable mindset. If you are already struggling with depression, it is not a good time to start doing shadow work because shadow work is really fucking hard. It requires you to look at yourself very deeply and acknowledge a lot of shit about yourself. So if you're not in a good mental state, please don't do shadow work, at least not by yourself. And if you're a client of mine and I know you're in that state and you ask me about shadow work, I'm literally not even going to tell you about it because I don't want to put you in a state you can't handle. However, acknowledging the feelings that you have, being mindful, I am feeling anxious, and not labeling yourself as anxious. Instead of saying I'm anxious, here's one mindfulness tip that I learned in psychology. So my undergraduate degree is in psychology, and I use it all the time. Here's something I learned in those classes. Stop identifying yourself as the feeling. Identify more as having the feeling. That removes you and takes it off of you like a label, right? Instead of saying, I'm depressed, you can say, I feel depressed. Instead of saying, I'm anxious, you can say, I feel anxious. That makes it present, that makes it in the moment and not a long-term thing. You're not saying, I'm depressed, which could be forever. You are saying, I am feeling depression, which is a temporary now thing that you can more easily deal with, okay? Keep that in mind. Number 2, embrace self-responsibility. To avoid spiritual bypassing, take responsibility for your own healing journey. Just like I have said and Heather has said and countless other people have said a billion times, we cannot heal you. If you are not willing to do the work required, you're not going to go anywhere regardless of what I do for you, okay? I cannot heal you. Heather cannot heal you. We are here to help you heal yourself, okay? This means actively engaging in the process, seeking therapy or counseling when necessary, and working on your personal growth. Set clear and achievable goals for your healing journey and make a plan to achieve them. Stop setting goals that you know you're not going to reach. If you know you're not going to get out of bed at 4 a.m., why would you set your alarm for 4 a.m.? Because you're going to hit snooze 87 times and then you will feel like a failure when you get up at 6. If you meant to get up at 6, set your alarm for 6. Get up at 6. You start your day off in a victory. You are in charge of all this. You're in charge of this, friends. You're in charge. Just saying, you're in charge. And number 3, seek guidance and support. Overcoming spiritual bypassing doesn't mean you have to go it alone. Seeking guidance and support from trusted friends, family members, therapists, or spiritual mentors who can provide insight, accountability, and encouragement. Engaging in therapy or counseling can be particularly helpful in addressing deep-seated emotional wounds. I will never tell you not to go to a doctor. I will never tell you not to go to a therapist. And if there is a spiritual teacher who tells you don't do those things, that makes me question their validity. Why? Because we're here to work together. I have 20 plus years in the medical field. I believe in Western medicine. I do, but I believe it's limited. I believe it's not the whole picture. And I believe when you work together with other things, it's a more complete picture of health. I believe in therapy. I go to therapy myself because there needs to be an impartial party in your life that you can say these things to that give you perspective on what you're doing. Because a lot of times you don't realize what you're doing. You don't realize it until somebody else points it out to you. I'm just saying. That's where Heather comes in so great. She's an intuitive counselor. So she sits with you and she taps into your energy and she feels what's going on in your energy and then combines that with what you're saying to give you a more clear picture of what you're going through. You see what I'm saying? That's where therapy comes in. A spiritual person with an account that isn't friends with Miss Schumann. I don't know what that means, but okay. All right. Let's see. Surrounding yourself with a supportive community is very important. With a supportive community that understands the complexities of the healing journey can provide validation and empowerment. I cannot stress enough how important it is to have a group of people around you that you can talk about this stuff with. Someone who's not going to judge you for talking about spiritual stuff. Someone who's not going to think you're crazy or label you as crazy because you're talking about energy and how it moves in your body. You don't ever want to talk to someone who's going to shut that. I mean, I'm not saying don't talk to them, but I'm saying don't force someone to listen to you if they're not ready, but find your tribe, find your vibe tribe, find your vibe tribe. Very, very helpful. Okay. Moving forward, actively participate in your healing process by utilizing the resources and support available to you. Regularly check in with your support network and be open to their feedback and guidance as you navigate your healing journey. That's a big one. Being open to other people's feedback and guidance, that's a hard one for a lot of people because they take it as a criticism. But it's only a criticism if you are reactive to what they're saying. When you heal yourself, when you work on healing yourself, those reactions that you have to feel like someone's attacking you get much, much less. And you become much more able to see the picture of them trying to offer you feedback in the situation, realizing they're not attacking you, they're just trying to give you perspective on stuff. That's why healing can be so important in this journey. The reality is that not everything in life is love and light. It's just not. But that's the slogan for many spiritual seekers. Just love and light, but it's not about that. Thank you so much for that. It's not just about that. It's about healing. It's about looking at the deep, dark, nasty, mud-covered parts of yourself and bringing light to those things, okay? In order to pursue a life of enlightenment and interconnectedness, one must ignite a flame within ourselves. True spirituality involves burning away false beliefs, illusions, desires, ideals, and prejudice. It requires surrendering to the destruction of limiting thoughts and feelings about oneself, others, and the world, ultimately resulting in the death of the ego, which sounds really scary, but it's really freeing. The spiritual journey is not always pleasant, okay? Often being a challenge and testing experience. However, emerging from the ashes of destruction allows for the rebirth into a new life of clarity and peace, akin to a phoenix rising from the ashes. You are that phoenix. You are that phoenix. You can do it, but you have to burn it down first. You know, it can be very difficult to move forward if you're holding on to a lot of limiting beliefs about yourself. I can't read cards because I'm not able to connect with higher self, or I'm not able to connect with non-physical. That's a limiting belief you hold about yourself. There's nothing special about what I do. I just get out of my way. Most of us are so busy in validating ourselves that we don't even realize we're doing it. You know what I'm saying? So that is the end of the prepared lesson on spiritual bypassing.